Minor detail, but
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. So, all right, now we talked about the 33rd degree Mason. People usually are like, that's the highest level of Freemasonry that there is. There's also a bunch of people that talk about, there's secrets in Freemasonry that a lot of people don't know about, and you have to, be deemed worthy to be told these secrets. You became a 33rd degree Mason, and you eventually joined this secret group or secret order or whatever you want to call it. Can you explain what that is?
okay. Well, beyond what we've just been talking about, over in Europe, there's what's called the Rite of Memphis Mithraeum, and that is 360 degrees beyond what's I've already discussed, and most Masons don't even know about that. Now, I got up to the if memory serves, 96 degree. And because how I did that is, there was a group in Chicago where they were involved with that thing, because Chicago was, and probably still is, a major nexus of Satanism.
Whoa! Did you catch that? No wonder we have all this bloody violence going on in Chicago. He said it's a nexus for Satanism. So there is a dominion of the enemy that is based in Chicago, basically. Obviously we know life is spiritual, but this one is very spiritually induced, so it's intentional. So that's very interesting to pay attention to those kind of stuff. You hear all the violence going on in Chicago, they try to stop it. You don't think they're trying, but it's a spiritual dominion that is established in Chicago that is preventing that from happening.
Most people don't know that. So this
No,
group
they don't.
brought me into Memphis Mithraeum, and ultimately there was a fellow that flew over all the way from Paris, who was the son of Pappas. Now, you probably don't know that name, but Pappas was a very prominent 19th century high-level occultist and ceremonial magician, and he wrote a book called The Tarot of the Bohemians, about tarot cards, And he came over and he brought me into the 97th degree. And this is where you get into the really deep stuff, the ideas behind sexual alchemy,
Whoa.
how to supposedly live forever, all this creepy stuff. Anyway, I would go up to these guys that had been in the Scottish Rite forever, older men that were in their 60s. And I'd say, okay, I'm now a sublime prince of the royal secret. Whang, they did this initiation, and I was a sublime prince of the royal secret. I said, so what's the royal secret? And they go, I don't know. Now, whether they were just feigning ignorance, because at this time I was like in my late 20s, or what, I don't know. But I learned eventually, after getting into the Rite of Memphis Mithraeum, and again, this is something that probably only 1 in 1,000 Masons in America understands, is that the royal secret is that you can live forever by sexually vampirizing children.
Wow.
Literally. And
whoa. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. Really? Wow.
That's what these people believe. Now, again, the vast majority of Masons have no understanding of any of this. They just think it's this good old boys club,
right,
that teaches, morality. And this is the way with almost all of these groups, whether it's the Mormons or the Masons or the witches or the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
They all have this vast number of reasonably good people, in some cases very good people, under them that are sort of feeding them all of this energy. Because let me back up. When I was into Satanism, we understood and were taught that Satan draws energy from being worshipped.
Oh, really?
And when these guys, they don't, even if they don't understand it, every time a Mason kneels at the altar and swears an oath, the devil gets energy from that. And again, most Masons, if they heard this, they would be scandalized. They'd say, this guy's a nut. But the funny thing,
They don't understand that there are levels to this game. To any game, you can always go deeper.
is, and like you say, you've talked with people who, to a greater degree or a lesser degree, and believe me, we've talked to dozens of people over the years in ministry who came to us who were, like sodomized as children,
Whoa.
who were literally taken to the Masonic Lodge
Wow.
after hours, laid on that very same altar that the Holy King James Bible laid on, and they were gang raped by a bunch of old men that were all high-level Masons
Wow.
until they were practically dead.
Yeah, that's pretty much the story that I heard without, details, because it was an eyewitness account. It was a secondhand witness, but it's similar to what I heard before. So, okay. A lot of said about Freemasonry, and you kind of said how, Freemasonry is worshiping Lucifer. And I think that's made very clear in the books that you talked about. If people want to check the references, they can check your book, or they can go directly to the references if they doubt anything, because it's in there. I want to go back to something that you said earlier, because we kind of did a tangent on Freemasonry, because I thought it was very important. But you talked about selling your soul. Let's get back to that, because I definitely don't want to ignore that. Can you explain the circumstances around that?
Well, again, there was this group in Chicago, and they were entwined with this Memphis Mitzrayim rite, and they were also with this. It was like two things together: the Brotherhood, which I mentioned earlier, and then this Memphis Mitzrayim thing. And I interacted with these people, and at a certain point, they said, "Well, if you want to go any further and become a satanic priest, you need to, sell your soul to the devil." And so they took me to this park in Glen Ellen, Illinois, which is like a suburb of Chicago. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it was a very weird park. It was broad daylight. And they said, don't worry about it. The cops are all devil worshipers. And in the center of the park, there was this area where they had these weird
territory
Egyptian statues. There literally was an altar with horns, kind of like the pictures you see of the altar in the Temple of Solomon, that kind of thing. And they brought out this black book, and there were all these names in it. And this one supposed high-level Satanist kind of officiated, and I swore an oath to Satan, my allegiance to him, that I would serve him for 7 years, and he would give me everything I wanted, wine, women, song, power, occult power, whatever. And at the end of those 7 years, he could kill me and take me to hell. By that time, I had been told that the Satanists believe that hell is like one long orgy of drugs, sex, and rock and roll, so to speak, So I didn't think going to hell was a bad thing at that time. So I had to sign my name in blood in this
the
black
deception
book.
the enemy has over these
and
people.
Supposedly, this sounds funny, but I was supposed to go out and find 7 people to sell their souls to the devil under me.
Isn't that like MLM? So the devil is recruiting. The devil wants you to create disciples, just imitating everything God does,
so to speak, sort of like multi-level marketing.
He says
for
it.
the devil.
Basically,
I got 7, and I
just to clarify, nothing wrong with multi-level marketing at all. It's just that people tend to see it as a bad thing because a bunch of people don't make money doing it, so they call it a bad thing. But in business, it's a sphere of life, and even in the workplace that they pay you 9 to 5. It's sort of a multi-level marketing. Those people are also looking for people to recruit. They tell their workers, if you have somebody come in, we can give you a dividend or an incentive to recruit someone for us. So it's all a multi-level marketing thing if you really think about it. But the concept gets people all annoyed because a bunch of people are not willing to put in the work to make money out of it when it comes to business.
Feel so bad about this. I've contacted as many of these people as I can find to try and talk them out of it and, repent and all that. But, and still, I didn't have the things I needed. I had, my life was not good.
Look
Even
at
though
that.
I was supposedly
The
this
devil lied.
high-level warlock, satanic priest, blah, blah, blah. I was working in a nothing job. I was a security guard
What?
in a warehouse, barely getting by. And then what happened is
That's crazy.
I'd written a check. Every year I wrote a check to the Church of Satan. I think it was for $10 to
He takes
renew my
tithes to the
subscription.
devil.
They had a newsletter, probably still do, called The Cloven Hoof.
Look at that.
And
The devil, man. Copying God.
when I got the check back from the bank, because they used to do that, someone had written on the check, some lady by the handwriting, "I'll be praying for you in Jesus' name."
Oh.
And I just scoffed. And the funny thing is, let me just say, I had not had any contact with Christians. Nobody ever tried to witness to me. Nobody, had ever come to our door and try to, give us tracts or talk
Right.
about Jesus.
Right.
Even the Jehovah's Witnesses never came to our door because they were scared of us,
Oh, really?
because people understood, they'd see us out in the backyard in the moonlight in black robes dancing around, So
No
anyway,
way. What?
I got this check and I just scoffed at it. And literally within 24 hours, it was like I was hit with a freight train. I lost all my occult power, and believe the magical power is real. I lost my job. I got as sick as a dog. And I thought, what the heck, So we had an altar up in the attic. The whole attic, we painted it black. And we had a magic circle on the floor. I had a big statue of Pan, the horned god, all kinds of creepy stuff. And I went up there and I knelt and I prayed to Lucifer. And I said, "What's going on? I've done everything you've told me. And my life is just increasingly gone to hell, literally."
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, even when I was praying to Lucifer, Jesus answered my prayer. Because the next day, we got a call from these two teenage Satanist girls from Chicago. They wanted to come up and meet me because they heard about I was this great satanic priest. And so they came up on the train. They said, "We had a gift for you." And I thought, well, I could use a gift right now because I just lost my job. I don't have hardly any money, And they show up at the door and they sit adoringly at my feet. And they give me these two comic books from Chick Publications. I assume you're familiar with Chick Publications.
I'm not. I think I'm too young for that.
It's a Christian publishing house. And he made these, I don't know how many there are now, but at the time there were like 15 or so full-color comic books. But they were about Christian themes. And they were intended to be soul-winning tools.
Oh,
and
wow.
in the back of them, there was, a thing about, okay, how to get born again. And the two that these kids gave me, I say kids because they were probably in their late teens, one was called Spellbound and one was called Angel of Light. And you can look these up. They're probably available online. And they are about the dangers of the occult.
Oh, wow.
And about how Lucifer is really the god behind all false religions.
Of course.
And I just looked at them and whatever, and threw them in the door in the closet and forgot about them. Well, anyway, the next day, there's a knock on the door and we open it up and it's Mormon missionaries. Never had one come before. And they always are, two of them. Two young men. And I remembered what this guy said, this Grandmaster Druid back in, 1973. We're now in 1980. And we joined the Mormon church because we thought that was where we were supposed to be. This was a sign from Lucifer. So I joined the Mormon church. I tried to be a good Mormon. I stopped doing dope. I stopped having orgies. I was just monogamous. And the only thing we did, because we had been led to believe by this Druid guy that the Mormons were white witches. And so we still did white witchcraft, but we didn't do Satanism anymore. We got all of that out of our lives. Went to the temple in the Mormon church, did all their secret rituals, which are very Masonic.
Well, let's actually stop there because this is actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop there too because I don't want to play the whole thing. It's about an hour long, so I want you guys to watch it yourselves. But man, just imagine when you hear people talk about Freemasonry. So many people will tell you that it's in the church because it's in, I think, the Catholic Church. Most of these guys join the Freemasonry lodge or whatever. I don't know why they even call it that. It even sounds sinisterly scary, a lodge. Anyway, but you hear people. I've heard of someone in my family. They've passed away now, but I heard of someone in my family who was a Freemason, and I think they even said before he passed he didn't want to be part of it anymore. So they go deeper into occultism and all that, but they don't start like that. They start, like he said, a bunch of them are actually good people, and they're levels to the game. So a bunch of them don't even know how to go deeper, or if there is any way to go deeper at all. So they just think it's just, like he said, a brotherhood. So it's quite an interesting interview that this guy had with this guy to expose the devil, and I love it. I love reacting to stuff like that. But anyway, feel free to check the guy's channel. I think it's called Almost Fake, something like that. I don't remember. Let me check real quick what it's called. Let's see. So I'll tell you guys to go check it out.
We're only on the Scottish Rite. That's where the 33rd.
So it's called Almost False is the name of his channel. Almost False. I've watched a few of his interviews with, about the afterlife, and it's pretty solid. So I definitely recommend him to you guys to check it out. But in the meantime, yeah, that's all I got for you. Like, share, comment below. We're still building our website, so by the way, you keep that in mind. But yeah, you can subscribe to our newsletter as well. But I look forward to the next video. My name is Great Akudo, and this is the Akudo Experience. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.